my name is Andrew. I told my wife our marriage was cold. Her answer was cruel, so mine left her speechless. I said it without raising my voice. The air in the dining room was still, cut by the faint ticking of the antique clock that had belonged to my grandfather. The table between us was set for two, silver-polished, crystal glasses untouched. The meal she had ordered from the chef sat cooling, sea base with lemon butter, asparagus arranged like military lines. It smelled expensive, but lifeless. She didn't look up. Only her hand moved, folding the napkin with mechanical precision. Her nails were perfect. They always were. "You're confusing comfort with death," she said finally. "That's your problem." I studied her face. No tremor, no blink. Her beauty had calcified into something hard. I had married that poise once, admired it, even needed it. Tonight it was armor. What does that mean? It means you want warmth from something you froze. I laughed quietly, though nothing was funny. "So it's my fault." "Everything is," she said, sipping her wine. "You just like pretending it's weather." Her words landed like stones in an empty room. Something inside me cracked. Not anger, not heartbreak, something quieter. A realization that I was talking to a woman who had already rehearsed this conversation. I wanted to wound her back, to make her feel the sting she carried so elegantly. So I told her the truth, or at least part of it. "I don't think I love you anymore." That got her attention. She looked up, eyes narrowing, assessing damage. I saw the calculation behind them. No tears, only math. "Then don't," she said. "Just remember what not loving me costs." That was the cruel part. Because she was right. Love, in our marriage, had a price tag. Houses, investments, social armor. To stop loving her wasn't just emotional. It was financial suicide. When she left the room, her perfume lingered. Something foreign new. Not the scent she used to wear. That detail stayed with me. I write this now because silence has grown too heavy. The house echoes differently when you're alone with your decisions. The walls remember things. They hold whispers. Back then, I told myself I was the reasonable one. The calm husband. The rational man. That's how we describe cowardice when it wears a suit. We'd met 7 years earlier at a charity gala in Geneva. She was standing under a chandelier, light turning her hair into threads of gold. I was already rich by then. Old money, diversified, bored. She looked like movement. I mistook it for life. Our first months were perfect. She made me feel chosen, not purchased. We traveled, drank too much, bought too much. But even then there were small fractures. Her questions about accounts, her fascination with my lawyer, her tendency to vanish for hours and return radiant, as if charged by invisible applause. I ignored them. Men like me are trained to. We believe control is safety. By the second year, we stopped touching except for photographs. The tabloids loved us. They wrote about Europe's most elegant couple. We smiled, played the part. I told myself she was distant because beauty needed distance to survive. Now I know better. After that dinner, I couldn't sleep. The city outside was quiet, wrapped in snow. I sat in my study, lights low, the fire dying in its grate. The sound of melting ice in my glass was the only rhythm in the room. I kept replaying her words. Remember what not loving me costs. Was it a threat? A warning? Or simple truth? I opened my laptop, the screen glow cutting through the dark. Bank statements. Investments. Everything neatly in place, except one small transfer I didn't recognize. 47,000 euros, moved to a private account labeled Aurelia Trust. My wife's middle name was Aurelia. I stared at it for a long time. The transfer wasn't new. It had been recurring for months. Same amount, same day. Always routed through a secondary branch of my own firm. I should have confronted her then. Instead, I poured another drink. Because confrontation is not in my nature. Observation is. I started watching her. Quietly. Over the following weeks, she became more radiant. New dresses. New jewelry I hadn't bought. A lightness in her step that had nothing to do with me. She smiled at her phone often, the way she hadn't smiled at me in years. One evening, as she showered, I went through her drawer. Not her phone. Too obvious. But the small box where she kept jewelry receipts and event invitations. Inside, folded carefully, was a receipt for a safety deposit box registered under her maiden name. The location, Zurich. It was dated 2 months before our anniversary trip, the one where she claimed to be ill and stayed behind. I felt nothing at first, just calculation. Numbers, timelines, logistics. But beneath that, A vibration began, a dull, internal hum I couldn't quiet. When she came out of the bathroom, steam trailing behind her like smoke, I asked, "How long have you had that box in Zurich?" She froze for a heartbeat, then smiled. "Which box?" "The one you pay for every month from the Aurelia Trust." Her towel slipped slightly at the shoulder. "You've been checking my accounts?" "I check our accounts." She laughed. Not with humor, with disbelief. "You never cared before. Why now?" "Because something changed." "What changed?" she said, stepping closer. "Is that you finally realized you can lose." Her calm was surgical. The conversation ended there. She went to bed. I stayed awake. That was the night the confession began, not to her, but to myself. In the days that followed, I kept writing notes in a black notebook. Observations. Small, detached sentences. She hides her phone under a pillow. A message from HR arrives at midnight. Her eyes flick left when she lies. I didn't know yet what I was documenting, betrayal or madness. I told my assistant to pull bank archives from the past 3 years. She hesitated but obeyed. Loyalty can be bought, curiosity cannot. When the data arrived, the pattern was unmistakable. Every month, similar withdrawals, identical coding, routed through a firm she once consulted for, Helios Advisory, based in Prague. I remembered the name from one of our dinner conversations years ago. She'd said the owner was a visionary, dangerous man. I had assumed admiration. Now I saw warning. A week later, she hosted a dinner at the house. Art dealers, architects, a few political acquaintances. She played perfect hostess. The kind who remembers everyone's favorite wine, who touches an arm at just the right second. I watched her from the corner of the room. To them, she was charm embodied. To me, she was theater. When the guests left, she found me in the study. "You didn't speak much," she said. "I was listening." "To what?" "The performance." She smirked. "You've become poetic. That's dangerous. Tell me about Helios Advisory." The smile faltered. "Barely. You've been busy." "Answer." "It's a consulting firm. They handle offshore portfolios." "For you?" "For us." "Then why my assistant didn't know?" She tilted her head, studied me. "Because she's yours, not ours." That single sentence split the air. I realized then, she was no longer afraid of being caught. Maybe she wanted to be. Later that night, I went to her vanity. Her phone lay charging. For a moment, I hesitated, dignity versus truth. Then I unlocked it with her fingerprint while she slept. Messages. Encrypted app. Contacts saved as E. Transfer confirmed. He hasn't noticed? Her, he's starting to. Let him. It keeps him alive. E. He deserves worse. Her, he'll give it to himself. I stared at the screen until dawn. When she woke, I was already dressed, sipping coffee, expression neutral. She looked at me, studied me the way predators study motionless prey. "Rough night?" she asked. "I slept fine." "You should. You have nothing to worry about." That was the first lie of the morning. The next day, I called my lawyer. He'd handled my affairs for years, the sort of man who never blinked when handling 7-figure transfers or quietly dissolving shell companies. When I asked about Aurelia Trust and Helios Advisory, his tone changed. "Those entities are registered, yes. But not under your name." "Under whose?" "Legally, I can't say. But I can tell you the filings were executed with documentation that matches your own handwriting." My pulse slowed, not quickened. "Are you suggesting forgery?" "I'm suggesting someone has access to your private materials. Passport, signature scans, digital tokens. Someone inside the house." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. When I hung up, I sat in silence. The morning light through the tall windows cut the room into precise rectangles. Everything looked too clean, too organized. My world had been structured around numbers, control, predictability. Now even my name had been repurposed. That evening I asked her directly, "Did you use my identification for anything recently?" She didn't pause her reading. "Of course not." "Why?" "There are accounts with my signature." "Then maybe you should sign less often." "You're enjoying this," I said. "I'm surviving it." The exchange ended with her leaving the room, the sound of her heels echoing across marble like metronome clicks. Each one a countdown. I thought about confronting E. Whoever he was, he existed somewhere in her phone, her language, her night silences. But I wasn't ready. I needed more. Proof, not just suspicion. Suspicion can be mistaken for paranoia. Proof cannot. So I began recording everything. Small cameras in the library, hallway, garage. microphones hidden in flower arrangements. The staff was told we were under renovation. No one questioned the installations. By the fourth day, footage began to accumulate. Her pacing, calls, rehearsed expressions before picking up the phone. She smiled before she answered, as if choosing the mask first. One night, she whispered, "He's starting to watch me." The voice replying was faint but male. Then feed him the story. That line replayed in my head for hours. Feed him the story. I wasn't prepared for how efficient she was at constructing illusions. She began to act warmer, more attentive. The cruel wife became affectionate again. She touched my shoulder in passing, left small notes, laughed at jokes she would once ignore. It was performance art, and I was the critic. But I played along. I took her to dinner at the same restaurant where I'd proposed. Candlelight, champagne, curated nostalgia. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm remembering." "What exactly?" "The part where I believed everything you said." Her eyes softened, but her grip on the glass tightened. "We both lied," she said. "How?" "You pretended to love me for reasons other than control. And you?" "I pretended to need you for reasons other than survival." The honesty was surgical. For a second, it almost disarmed me. But truth, from her, was never without motive. When we left, snow began to fall. In the car, she rested her head against the window, eyes half closed. "You'll miss me when I'm gone," she murmured. "Gone where?" She smiled. "Where you can't follow." I spent the next week inside my study, watching footage. Each clip was an incision into my own ignorance. In one, she opened a drawer, removed a small black envelope, and slid in a memory card. In another, she took a call and said, "Yes. Zurich is ready. He's losing focus." Zurich again. When she left for her gallery weekend in Milan, I followed her to the airport. She flew business, elegant as ever, while I watched from a distance, unshaven, coat turned up, blending among travelers. The moment she disappeared beyond security, I returned home, drove 3 hours to Zurich. The safety deposit box required 2 keys. Hers, and the master held by the bank. Money and name opened most doors. Inside the box, a flash drive, a passport with her photo under another surname, and a folder titled Contingency. The flash drive contained financial data, accounts that bled directly from mine into offshore structures. Names altered, signatures fabricated. But the most disturbing file was a text log titled Project Frost. It contained notes written by her. Cold, precise. He suspects now. Maintain intimacy as distraction. Helios confirms timeline. Once he signs the merger documents, extraction begins. E. Believes psychological destabilization will accelerate compliance. Ensure guilt narrative. Make him confess first. I scrolled until the last entry. If discovered, mirror his accusations. He doubts his own perception. The room spun, not from shock, but clarity. She wasn't improvising cruelty. She was conducting it. I flew back the next morning. When she returned from Milan, she looked radiant, rested. "How was your weekend?" I asked. "Peaceful," she said. "You?" "Productive." "Good. You need distractions." Her tone made me realize something critical. She still thought she controlled the narrative. That was her weakness. She underestimated silence. I didn't confront her. I watched. I waited. Control, when regained, must be invisible. I transferred minor sums between accounts she couldn't access. I changed passwords, canceled automatic transfers. She noticed within days. "Did you change the trust routing?" she asked over breakfast. I updated it. Security protocol. Her fork paused midair. "Without telling me, you said we needed transparency." Her smile flickered, brief as static. Of course. That night she didn't come to bed. I heard her pacing downstairs, speaking softly into her phone. "He's accelerating," she whispered. "No, not yet. If he sees the files, it's over. We push phase 2. Phase 2. The phrase echoed until dawn. I began keeping a written log beside the recordings. Every word she spoke, every glance, every deviation from her usual patterns. I documented everything because she had already rewritten my reality once. I wouldn't let her do it again. At times, I wondered if I had already crossed into obsession. The question didn't matter. Obsession is simply focus without permission. On the 10th day after Milan, she found the cameras. She entered the study quietly, holding one in her hand. "Interesting hobby," she said. "I like remembering things accurately." "You're sick." "Maybe, but I'm accurate." She placed the camera on the desk. Delete everything. Now. No. Then you'll regret it. Her voice was calm, too calm. I realized she wasn't afraid of exposure. She was afraid of losing the story she'd built. You planned this, I said. The trust, the signatures, even this argument. She smiled faintly. And you're still dancing where I lead. Then she left. Later that night, the study lights flickered, power briefly cutting out. When the system rebooted, the external drive containing my recordings was wiped. Clean. She had access. Somehow. My logs were all that remained. Ink on paper, untouchable by code. 2 nights later, she approached me differently. No hostility. No coldness. She poured 2 glasses of whiskey, sat beside me. I don't want to fight anymore, she said. Then stop. It's not that simple. Everything is. She looked at me with something almost human. What if I told you I did it for us? Stole from me for us. I secured us. I knew what you were planning. The merger would have wiped half our assets. Helios was protection. Protection from whom? From you. Her words were too soft to believe. I stared at her. And Eve? She hesitated. A consultant. A lover. Her silence confirmed. I thought then that the story had reached its nadir. I was wrong. The next morning, my lawyer called again. There's been an incident, he said. Helios filed a legal claim. Unauthorized asset seizure. They have documentation bearing your digital signature. How? Because someone used your credentials yesterday. I looked toward the bedroom. She was standing by the window, phone in hand, sunlight outlining her silhouette. Understood, I said and hung up. She turned. Who was that? Work. You look pale. Lack of sleep. Her smile returned. You'll rest soon. For the first time, I believed her. That night, I entered her closet, searching for the passport. It was gone. The jewelry box was empty too. When I returned to the study, I found a single envelope on the desk. My handwriting on the front, though I hadn't written it. Inside, one sentence. Confession is the final luxury of men who mistake silence for power. No signature. No explanation. That's when I began this document. This written confession. The only thing she hasn't erased yet. I began writing because there was no one left to believe me. Each night, I filled pages with evidence, dates, transactions, fragments of conversations, trying to prove that I hadn't imagined her cruelty. But paper can't argue back. It only absorbs. 3 days after the envelope appeared, she was gone. No message, no luggage missing except the small black envelope I'd seen in Zurich. The staff said she left before dawn. I called her number. Straight to voicemail. At first I thought she'd run, but the house felt arranged, curated for departure. Her perfume bottle left open on the dresser, wedding ring resting beside it like punctuation. I poured a drink and waited. That evening, a courier delivered a sealed USB drive and a handwritten note. For your conscience. Watch it alone. No signature. I locked the study door and opened the file. A video played, grainy surveillance footage from my own library, one of the cameras she'd supposedly destroyed. In the video, I sat at my desk, motionless, talking to someone who wasn't visible. My voice was calm, detached. She knows, I said. We proceed anyway. The unseen voice replied, distorted. You understand the cost? I created the trust. She just executed it. The clip ended. For a long time I couldn't move. The timestamp showed 3 months earlier. The recording was real. My mouth, my tone, my signature words. But I had no memory of that conversation. None. If the footage was fabricated, it was flawless. If it was real, then I had already destroyed myself before accusing her. I spent the next day reviewing every account again. The pattern had shifted. The trust no longer existed. The money had been funneled into new entities, Frost Holdings, Erebus Consult, Helios Legacy, all structured under my authorization. Every digital trace pointed back to me. I realized then what Project Frost truly meant. It wasn't about extraction. It was about erasure. She hadn't stolen from me. She'd written me out. That night the police came. A polite knock, followed by 2 officers in plain clothes. Fraud investigation, they said. A warrant based on data provided by Helios Advisory. They showed me documents with my electronic signature, transaction logs, and a recorded statement from a woman claiming to be my financial advisor. Her voice was distorted, but the cadence was familiar. Your wife? One of them asked. I shook my head. No. She's missing. They exchanged looks. One of them asked me to come in for questioning the next morning. After they left, I sat in the dark for a long time. The house no longer felt like mine. The mirrors reflected someone else's life. At midnight, the phone rang. Unknown number. Her voice, soft, measured. You shouldn't have watched the video. Where are you? Somewhere safer than you. What did you do? What you taught me. Anticipate, diversify, survive. You ruined me. No. I revealed you. The line went dead. I stared at the receiver until the dial tone became a single, endless hum. In the morning, I met the investigators. They showed me additional footage, this time from the bank in Zurich. A man, my height, my posture, withdrawing contents from the safety box. His face partly obscured by a scarf, but the resemblance was undeniable. Is this you? They asked. I said nothing, because even I wasn't sure anymore. They released me pending further review. My lawyer refused to take new calls. My assistant resigned via email. When I returned home, the power was out. The generator failed. Only the study's emergency lamp still glowed faintly, illuminating the scattered pages of this confession. On the desk lay another note. You wanted truth. This is it. Underneath, a single photograph. Her sitting in a hotel lobby, sunlight behind her, holding a new passport. The name read Evelyn Frost. The name from the files. Project Frost. I poured the last of the whiskey and opened a new document on the typewriter. If she had rewritten my life into guilt, I would at least decide how the story ended. So I wrote. I told my wife our marriage was cold. Her answer was cruel, so mine left her speechless. And I kept writing until dawn. Every sentence circling the same absence. Outside, the first snow began to fall. Somewhere, she would see the same snow and know I'd finally understood. Cruelty was never her weapon. It was her mirror. She reflected everything I refused to admit, that I had built a marriage on control, dressed it as love, and called it loyalty. She had simply perfected the art of survival in a world I created. When the police returned 2 days later, the study was empty. The fireplace cold. Only this manuscript lay on the desk and signed, ending mid-sentence.